media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Pierre Poilievre just finishing up a live press conference, vetoing and putting his foot down on Justin Trudeau's vote-buying grab to pause the GST on certain items that are going to be available at Christmas time. Keep in mind that this $250 rebate that he's promising you in the spring, as well as the pause on GST, is only for particular items. It's not even a pause on GST for everything. It's a pause on the GST for Christmas trees, for board games, for kids' clothing, for electronic devices like video game systems, things that are, for the most part, don't get me wrong, kids' clothing is important, but for the most part, these are luxury items that are not necessities. These are not things that Canadians really need to be buying right now at a time when this Prime Minister has run this country into the ground. The only food that's being exempt right now are snacks that are high in salt or party snacks like vegetable trays, potato chips, peanuts, things that people typically have over the holidays when they're entertaining guests, but really pose no benefit. In fact, they're saying that on average, you'd have to spend roughly $3,000 on just these items in order to pocket about $250 in savings over the pause of the GST, let alone your $250 that Justin Trudeau is giving back. Now, Pierre Poilievre is now coming under fire for putting his foot down, for saying that this nearly $2 billion deficit that Canada would be taking in order for the government to pause it's GST. I've been told on both sides of the spectrum that, hey, it's better in our pockets than theirs. I agree. But again, it's only on certain items. This should be a full exemption if we're going to do anything. I want to go over to what Pierre was saying in his press conference. I've already got past the slogans. I've already got past all the stuff. And again, where Pierre gets into things here is, again, what I'm really liking, what I'm really enjoying seeing from Pierre is that he's essentially fighting for Canada now. He's saying Canada first, Canada always. He's showing the reality to the news reporters that Canada is in one of the worst states it's ever been in, especially in the last 10 years. Let's get into what he starts saying, and then we're going to pause periodically. We're going to talk about what he's saying and why I kind of agree with what Pierre's doing here. Let's take a listen.
Now we face new threats to our brittle and weak economy. The reality is we have a weakened economy, a weakened border, a weakened military, and a severely weakened Prime Minister. He's desperate. He's lost control, but he's trying to hold on to power. And so he's come up with a irresponsible and inflationist $6 billion tax trick that he will take away right before raising the carbon tax on heat, housing, groceries, and gas in just a few months.
Now, I want to pause there because what he brings up is $6 billion. Now, I'm assuming, based on Doug Ford's response the other day, that it was going to cost his province of Ontario roughly $1 billion on top of the projected $1.6 billion that the government was swallowing. I'm assuming that that $6 billion is for provinces with PST, HST, any kind of clawback that they're going to have to deal with. Not to mention the cost of getting retailers to inconveniently figure out how not to charge GST on all these other things. $6 billion. So that we can save less than $100 over Christmas and get a $250 check for nothing to buy votes.
Common sense conservatives will vote against this irresponsible, inflationist, temporary 2-month tax trick, and instead push our plan to axe the carbon tax and axe the sales tax on new homes for everyone, for good. And I would add that now is the worst possible time to be blowing $6 billion trying to save Justin Trudeau's political skin, especially with the threats coming from the United States, with our border in chaos, our economy collapsing, and everything broken. We need real, responsible leadership from a strong, smart Prime Minister who has the brains and backbone to put Canada first. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to get into the questions here. We're going to go into his questions from the press, because those, we all know how good that gets. But realistically, what Pierre is saying here is what I've been seeing. Sorry, I apologize. My notifications are turned on while I'm filming. The people are messaging me constantly asking what am I doing about this, and this is again filming the video as quickly as possible to get it out for you guys. I apologize. Essentially, what Pierre is doing here is what a lot of people in the comment section on the last video where we talked about this in our live streams have all been saying, is that they don't want Justin's bribe money. They don't want his pitiful breadcrumbs that he's tossing to us, the peasants. What Pierre's talking about doing is getting rid of what really matters, what really is affecting Canadians, the carbon tax. When you think about the GST on new homes, for anybody who says, well, I can't afford a new home, if you're saving 5% of the price of a brand new home, by today's standards, let's just say that's a $500,000 home, you're saving $25,000. That's your down payment. You're not saving $50, half a tank of gas. I think what Pierre's doing here is responsible. I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, some of my colleagues were saying it's better in our pockets than theirs. I agree. But I don't disagree with what Pierre's doing. I think he's making the right call. Let's get into the press questions and see what comes from that.
Mr. Poilievre, have you or anyone associated with your...
I thought you liked the idea of cutting taxes.
This isn't. That's why I'm opposed to this. This isn't a tax cut. This is an inflationary 2-month temporary tax trick that will drive up the cost of living. Even today, the food professor was out saying this measure will make food even more expensive. That's what happens when government dumps a bunch of cash into the country without creating more of what cash buys. We need tax relief that actually encourages the economy to produce more of the stuff cash buys. Grow more food, build more homes, and produce more energy. If you got an economy with 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 a loaf. If you double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 loaves of bread, you're not twice as rich. It just means that each loaf of bread costs twice as much. You got to produce more grains and bake more bread rather than creating more cash. And that's what my tax cuts are not just about lowering costs. They're about sparking more production. By axing the carbon tax, our businesses can hire more workers and produce more goods. By axing the sales tax, we're going to get 30,000 extra homes per year every year. By getting rid of the energy cap, we're going to produce more affordable energy. So instead of creating cash, we're going to create more of what cash buys, and our purchasing power will go further.
Now, he's got a great point there. And if you go back to things like CERB, and the government's free handouts there, which, by the way, most people had to pay back. This is nothing more than a ploy. It is not a tax break. This is deficit. This is money we're going to have to pay back, regardless of whether they give us a break right now. And when we pay it back, if anybody knows anything about interest rates, if anybody knows anything about how a credit card works, well, when you accumulate debt, you don't just pay back exactly what you got back. You pay back that and then some. I think, again, what Pierre's doing here is the right call. And what he's talking about essentially here is educating prostitutes on supply and demand. If you have more products, if you produce more goods, the cost of those goods goes down because of supply and demand. So printing money doesn't solve the problem. Giving out free checks doesn't solve the problem. What he's proposing is some of the first steps to solving a grander problem.
If the government needs to pass new spending to better secure its borders, would you support that?
Why haven't they done it? They broke the border. Justin Trudeau broke the border. We didn't have these problems before Justin Trudeau. We didn't have Roxham Road before Justin Trudeau. We didn't have these illegal border crossings before Justin Trudeau. We didn't have, the number of asylum claims have gone from 10,000 to over 200,000 under Justin Trudeau, more than 20-fold increase. All the chaos at our border is the result of Justin Trudeau. It's his job to come up with a plan today. You know what we're seeing now, though, is that because the Prime Minister has vacated the border and turned it open to anyone who wants to come in, the premiers are now taking responsibility for our border. Trudeau wants to be in charge of all these provincial areas of jurisdiction, and yet he's not taking care of the one federal job that is most the responsibility of the federal government, which is the border. So we have Quebec sending in the Sûreté du Québec, their police force, to secure the border. Premier Smith, common sense leader, is proposing to use drones, provincial drones, and other police law enforcement measures from her province to secure the borders there. I understand Doug Ford is looking at something similar. So now, because Trudeau has so thoroughly broken the border, we're getting a patchwork of premiers who have no choice but to try and hold the border together with bubble gum, scotch tape, and elastic bands. Just everything is broken after Justin Trudeau. We need a carbon tax election to fire him and bring in a strong prime minister who can rebuild our borders.
Now, with that being said, Pierre Poilievre's nailing it on the head here. We have bigger fish to fry. There's bigger problems. The fact that he's getting all of this scrutiny, and he's going to continue getting it. Don't get me wrong. The House of Commons, you're going to see the NDP, you're going to see the Liberals all turn on Pierre Poilievre here and say, oh, he didn't want to support any kind of benefit for people. You heard that smug reporter. Oh, I thought you liked cutting taxes. This wasn't a tax cut. This was free money. Deficit money. There's a big difference between cutting taxes and accumulating a deficit. It's no different than CERB. It's no different than any other time Justin Trudeau has attempted to buy people's votes. That's all this was a good old dirty, greasy car salesman trick to make you believe he cares while he's throwing you breadcrumbs while he's eating steak. That's essentially where we're at. Again, I think what Pierre's doing is the right decision. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. That's the question of the day today. Do you think Pierre Poilievre is making the right decision by opposing Justin Trudeau's free money? Let me know what you think down below if it's your first time here, if this video has earned your subscription. I hope it has. Make sure you're clicking that button, turning on your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, my live streaming show, where I sit down with my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, and we go over everything that's happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, as well as your Q&A and back and forth in the community. We have the best community on this platform, and I look forward to hearing what each and every one of you has to say, especially in regards to this. This upcoming Friday starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.